it's been argued that abortion issue is for Biden in 2024, essentially like what the gay marriage issue was for Bush in 2004. Well, and there's a way you can articulate what they have in common, and it's not trivial. In each case, one side of the presidential battle campaign chooses a cultural issue, a hot button moral issue or something on which the majority of the American people back in 2004, and in this case now, are against the other side. So Bush with Rove's direction in 2004, ran a campaign based on against gay rights. The polls about gay rights, about Americans' feelings, were like 60 couple percent were against gay marriage and other such things. And the Democratic Party found itself increasingly on the side of advancing those causes. It may well be that the election of 2004 was decided by that difference between the 60% that believed in gay marriage or whatever, and the 50% plus one you got, or the electoral college. That worked for Bush. It looks like maybe he won because of that issue. And likewise, in 2024, Joe Biden is looking at an abortion issue where the great majority of Americans are against what the Republicans have done and are doing with the issue. More than even more than that 60 couple, I think it's in the upper 60s or something, that are fundamentally against it. And the Republicans keep doubling down. So it looks like a real winner of an issue. We can even see that, the elections that have been held in red states like Kansas and Ohio, but especially Kansas, when people get a chance to vote on that issue, even a lot of Republicans don't like what their party is doing on the issue of abortion. So it's similarly a wedge issue. But there's also a difference between the two, which I want to point out. In both cases, gay marriage forbidden or blocked or prohibited, whatever the word would be, according to the Bush campaign. And then what the bans on abortion in these couple years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. In both cases, what the Republicans stand for is the imposition on society of a certain set of moral judgments. No gay marriage. The Bible says this or whatever that, and marriage is between a man and a woman. This is how we see it, and this is how the country's going to be run. And nowadays, the moral vision of there's a person there as soon as the egg gets fertilized. It has all the rights of a human being. That's how we see it. And that's how it's going to be done throughout the country. Which brings me to how I think it's best to conceive the abortion issue. Now, I am in favor of the state not involving itself in the abortion issue, and I want to explain why. And it isn't necessarily the kind of reasoning that went into Roe v. Wade. I didn't want it to be overturned, but I was never all that excited about that way of establishing that the state will stay out of the issue. I think that the right way to establish that constitutionally is to look at the First Amendment. You don't have to find umbras and penumbras of a right to privacy. It says freedom of religion. And it says there will not be any establishment of religion. That second one is important too. One of them says about liberty, and the non-establishment says no group of people with a particular religious point of view will impose their point of view on everybody else if that can be possibly avoided. I mean, we don't allow human sacrifice, for example. I don't have any problem with that. You know, if people's religion, you know, they have the Aztec religion or something like that, and they want to take some lovely young virgin from the tribe and sacrifice her on the altar. I don't mind. I don't mind establishing religion to the extent that that's not allowed. But with abortion, there are a couple things to be said. You could start with a lot of the things about having to do with the prohibition of abortion are based on beliefs that are held within the context of religious system of understanding. And they are religious beliefs to a large extent. I am not interested in taking an issue about, is it okay to kill a fetus at a certain stage or an embryo or whatever. I don't think we need to go to that point where people have different religious beliefs. The question is, how are we going to deal with the fact that different people see it differently? And in the case of abortion, between the time that they handed down Roe v. Wade, which was, I think, 1973, and the time that it was overturned in Dobbs in 2022, we had an enormous national discussion about the rights and wrongs of abortion. And it wasn't like human sacrifice, where, I mean, some of these things, you know, you kind of hate to have numbers matter. But if it's 99-1 on an issue like human sacrifice or something like that, well, with abortion, it was more or less 50-50 with some fluctuations. And now you can see that once you overturn that right and people take a look at what happens, the great majority of the American people do not agree with what Alito did with his Supreme Court decision. And if you've spent 50 years having a national discussion and you remain very divided, and maybe so divided that the moralistic impose our views on the society point of view is a minority view. I mean, it's bad enough to even allow us some kind of majority to impose its ways. You know, that has been a recipe for a lot of persecution and bad stuff. You know, like how the Jews were treated for 1,000 years in Europe as a minority religion. Even being a majority shouldn't allow you to impose your religion on other people. But when you're a minority, it takes some kind of a spirit to be willing to impose, say, we're going to make all of you live according to what we believe. I mean, we have had a choice in America on the issue of abortion. And it's not a completely happy choice, but there are just two options. One is the Alito option, the Grand Inquisitor option. I'll get back to that because it wasn't just, you know, there was a spirit visible, which means that some Americans, in this case, apparently a minority, will compel everybody to conduct their lives in accordance with the smaller group's religious beliefs. Or we can say, when it comes to things like this, we Americans can disagree strenuously, but our agreement really is that everybody's going to be able to live in accordance with their own religious beliefs, their own deepest beliefs about what's true and what's sacred and what isn't sacred. And abortion is an issue which fits that latter one rather well. It's not, people analogized, I don't know, 20 years in the Atlantic or something, an essay saying that the abortion issue is like the slavery issue. But in a fundamental way, it's not, because the abortion issue is something which gets played out in little microcosms of families and couples and whatever. It's not a public drama, and it doesn't have public ramifications. Everybody, I mean, here privacy does come out, that it doesn't affect the larger society in a way that the institution of slavery affected the wider society. Oh, do we give these people 3/5 more votes? Oh, do we compel these poor whites to compete against slave labor? There were all kinds of ramifications to slavery that made it not just, a private matter that people can live according to their own values. Yeah, a lot of people in the South believe that the Bible justified slavery because there was slavery in the Bible. Okay, they can believe that. But the issue of whether we were going to be half slave and half free, well, Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. That's because of all the ramifications of the thing. But with abortion, if you just say, and I say this is the American way, what we say, okay, people, we're all living in this society together. And the important thing here is that on a religious issue, we let everybody follow their own conscience. This is liberty. This is democracy, that we have a non-establishment clause that keeps people from imposing on other people their religious beliefs. People have been talking about abortion as a liberty issue or a freedom issue. And that is valid, but I think it can be brought into more powerful focus to conjure up what the fascistic aspect is of what's going on, which is we've got a minority that thinks it's entitled to impose its set of values on everybody, when we've got the option of letting everybody do what they believe in. People who are unhappy to live in a world where other people are doing things which they don't approve of, well, we have to deal with that a lot. I mean, a lot of people have religious beliefs that other people think are going to send them to hell. We don't, not everybody approves of everybody, but we have to live in a world, and that's what part of the democracy is. We tolerate what can be tolerated. If the society doesn't have an overwhelming interest in making sure that people don't steal and don't kill, okay, well, we have, if there's some religious group that believes in murder, we aren't going to tolerate that. Or slavery. We got to come to some resolution on some things, but we don't have to come to resolution on others. We let everybody live according to their own God-given voice, as it might be put. It's part of the vision of the founders that we would not give the state the power to constrain people in the living of their lives in ways that are not necessary. And with abortion, it's not necessary.